Welcome back, everyone. I'm sure most of you guys already know that the PlayStation 5 is probably one of the best new consoles. I mean, we have the Xboxes and everything, but back in the day, we had the PlayStation 3 series, and I'm sure everyone already knows what this console is. It was the successor to the PlayStation 2, which was the successor to the PlayStation 1. And what I can tell you is this was probably one of the best consoles ever made. I always loved the PlayStation 3 series, more specifically the original PlayStation 3. I felt like that console setup was like the best console ever at that time. And even now, like, it still holds up really well. And even sometimes when I boot my PlayStation 3s up and I play some random games, like, it's so surprising to me how well equipped those games were at the time. There was so much capability. The UI of it is timeless. And when you look at something like the PlayStation 5, I think this console in a way is more revolutionary than the PlayStation 4, obviously. But I feel like the impact that the PlayStation 5, the original PS5, is going to have is going to be more of an impact than maybe the PlayStation 4, and probably just as much as the original PlayStation 3. Now, when you look at the PlayStation 3 series, there's three different consoles. There's a PS3, there's a PS3 Slim, and there's the PS3 Super Slim. Right now, and we kind of had three for the PlayStation 4, we had the PS4, PS4 Pro, PS4 Slim. Now, that only makes me think that eventually there's going to be three sections of the PlayStation 5. We're going to have the original PlayStation 5, we're probably going to have some slim version of the PlayStation 5, and then eventually like a PlayStation 5 Pro a couple years from now. But as of right now, this console is the PlayStation 5 is going to be the most relevant one out of all of them, in my opinion, and it may even be the best one. You look at the PlayStation 3, the original one, that is considered, I think, the best PlayStation 3. Whenever you think of the PlayStation 3, you think of that console. You don't think of the PS3 Super Slim. That was, I think, not even, it was a good console and everything, but it kind of took away a lot what the original PlayStation 3 had. The massive thing is the massive backwards compatibility that the original PS3 had. Now, it did have some problems. It had a bunch of, blue light of death or yellow light of death or whatever it was that I'm sure Sony probably fixed with the later consoles, and maybe the PS5 will have something like that. But the PlayStation 5 reminds me so much of that console. Just a dedicated standing up console that's huge. It looks beautiful, it looks timeless, and the other day, even for me making this video, I booted up the PlayStation 3 and I just, was picking it up and stuff, and I was so surprised about how big and heavy that console is, and this one is no exception with the PlayStation 5. And I will tell you, if you have all the money in the world, obviously go for the PlayStation 5. It is the best console. Even the digital version is better than the original PlayStation 3, but even right there is another asset for all the PlayStation 3s. All of them had disc slots, and you can easily go and pick up any cheap game in the used market. PlayStation 3 games are super cheap now, and you can just play those and be perfectly fine. With the PlayStation 5 digital one, you only can buy brand new games unless you buy purchase the free ones like Fortnite and stuff. But for the most part, you can only buy and play new games on the digital PlayStation 5, which may be a problem for a lot of people. For me, I'm not really much of a gamer, so it really doesn't matter. But if you have a huge catalog of games, you will have to make sure that you had bought them in the Microsoft. You would have to make sure you bought them in the Sony PlayStation Store instead of actually having the disc versions of those games. So that's a huge thing to keep in mind. If you have them on a hard drive or something, that's fine. But if you have them in disc, it's just not going to work out properly. So that is a massive thing to keep in mind. And that right there is probably one of the biggest differences between the PlayStation 5 digital and all the PlayStation 3 models, just because of that. However, I will tell you, when you look at the PlayStation 3 Slim, that is still a very good looking console. I've, made reviews of this. I've talked about this so many times. And I love this console too. That one, I think, was probably one of the best looking PlayStation 3s in terms of like a minimalistic standpoint. I think the original PS3 is just such an icon, but this one with the Slim, it actually looked pretty good. And I liked how it was much smaller than the original PS3, but it also removed that backwards compatibility, which was really annoying. And that's one thing with the PlayStation 5 series that I hope Sony just does not do. When you look at the PlayStation 5 right now, it is backwards compatible with, I think, all PS4 games or most of them, and even some PlayStation 3 games, which is awesome. But when you look at something like the PlayStation 5 Slim or PlayStation 5 Pro, whenever those come out, I wonder if they're going to remove that specific backwards compatibility, because right now, there's just not that many games out for the PlayStation 5, so they have no choice but to allow PlayStation 4 games right now to be basically ported over to the PlayStation 5. But once the next version of PlayStation comes out, the PlayStation 5 Slim or whatever, software, are they going to remove that backwards compatibility with past behavior? Sometimes that kind of happens, especially considering, comparing it to the PlayStation 3. That may happen. Who knows? If there's a plethora of PS5 games, they may remove the PS3 backwards compatibility and then the PlayStation 4's backwards compatibility at some point. I'm not too sure. It's only, we can only think about it. The PlayStation 4 was never backwards compatible for the most part. So that's another really, really massive thing to keep in mind. But I will tell you, throughout what I've seen, I really do think the PlayStation 5 is going to be a killer console. I already own it. I'm talking as if I don't already own it. And so far from me using it, the one thing that Sony has knocked out of the park every single time is the UI. Now, in my opinion, I wasn't really a huge fan of the PlayStation 4's UI, but the PlayStation 3's UI was super beautiful. I really, really liked that user interface on that specific console. It looked beautiful. It was just like the PSP or backwards, vice versa, whatever. And that was such a beautiful UI that they had. Unfortunately, Microsoft, their UI is good. It's, I guess, current, but it's just nothing too crazy. Like, they pretty much just done the same thing they did with the PS4. But with the PlayStation 5, that really looks like the next gen console that we wanted in terms of the user interface standpoint. So that right there is a huge thing that I really, really liked about the PlayStation 5. And looking at the PS5, looking at the PS3, there's a lot of similarities with the UI for sure. Obviously, there's more between the PS4 and the PS3, but I'm glad we can see these type of differences. And just the UI itself and going through and the settings and going here and going there in the software, it really adds that much more flavor to the console. And I feel like a lot of people said that about the PlayStation 3 at that time, having a dedicated UI. And with the PlayStation 5, it is definitely no exception for sure. Now, on the outside, I'm pretty sure you guys already know this, but you definitely do have more next generation ports on something like the PlayStation 5. You still have the standard USB ports on all the PS3s for the most part, but the PlayStation 3 has that USB Type-C port. And I think that's what's really going to differentiate all consoles before and all consoles after the PlayStation 5. Pretty much this is just the, first look into what could happen with USB-C. And maybe we can see more than just, 3 USB ports typically on the console. We can probably see like 6 USB-C ports. It's probably never going to happen, but it's a thought. And USB-C gives you so much more flexibility and just so much more capability from, a standard USB port. And I think in the future, very, very soon, the USB-C port is going to be the one specific port that's going to power the console as well as display the console. So instead of having the AC adapter and the HDMI port, having this USB-C port on the PlayStation 5 just offers so much more availability. Right now, I think it's only for throughput, so you can't really display anything through it, or I don't even think you can power the PS5 through it, but you can, send data from a device to that specific console, which is huge. Basically everything a USB-A port can do, but it's just having the functions and just having the structure of having USB-C on that console. Really, it's like one of my favorite things about the PlayStation 5. I think the PS3 and everything is still perfectly good, but I just love how the PlayStation 5 has that capability, which is literally amazing. And you have so much more capability on the PlayStation 5 as well. You have 4K, you can do 8K, you have crazy amounts of apps you can download. You have software updates that's getting supported and all that stuff. And I think the biggest thing and the one thing that the PlayStation 3 has taught me, something that the PlayStation 4 has taught me, and just something that all these past generations, I think especially the PS3, is that when you look at the first generation of console with the original PlayStation 3 and we look at it now, we don't really think to ourselves that the PlayStation 3 Super Slim is a really, really good console still. Even though it came out after the PlayStation 3 original one, we just group all the PlayStation 3s together. And that is a very, very important thing to keep in mind. When you have a PlayStation 3, either the original or the Super Slim, it's still capable. It can still do a lot, but you don't really think you have a way better console than the original PlayStation 3 if you have a PS3 Super Slim, even though it came out many, many years later. You just think to yourself like, oh yeah, it's an older console, it's just a PlayStation 3, you don't have to differentiate the Super Slim or whatever. And I feel like for the people right now who may be waiting for the next PlayStation 5, obviously a lot of people can't get their hands on it, but if you're waiting for the next PlayStation 5, you're waiting for the PS5, Super Slim, or you're waiting for the PS5 Pro, just keep in the back of your head that yes, those consoles should theoretically be better in some areas, but they could also be worse in some areas too, which is another thing to keep in mind. But on top of that, they could potentially just in a couple of years not even matter. There are going to be incremental differences. It's not going to be going, from one generation to the other. It's going to be somewhat of a minor difference in my opinion. And that is a huge thing to keep in mind. A lot of people may not even understand that, but basically 10 years from now, we're not going to look at the PlayStation 5 Pro and think to ourselves, oh, that's the way better version of the PS5 or anything. We're just going to be like, PS5, it was a great console, but it's outdated now. That's what we're going to say 10 years from now. So for the people who may be waiting out for the next console or something, or they don't think now is the right time to buy PlayStation 5, well, there's 30 other reasons why now is not the right time to buy PlayStation 5. But I would never say to somebody who wants to pick one up and they're waiting for the next console, I would never say like, oh yeah, you should wait for it because the next one's going to be way better. If you keep doing that, then you're never going to buy the console, because then by that point you're going to wait for the PlayStation 6. So I'll definitely tell you, the PS5 is a great console compared to the PlayStation 3's. Obviously, it's a better console, but the PlayStation 3 lineup really, showcased a lot. It really showcased the future of consoles for the most part for the Sony lineup. It introduced, the better controller, in my opinion, even though it's kind of the same as PS2. I really like the PlayStation 3's controller. It showcased a new UI that was very beautiful, and it's, pretty much been ported over time and time again. The online capability of the PlayStation 3, the availability of the PlayStation 3 as of this point, I mean, you can go down the street and pick up a PlayStation 3 from someone if you really wanted to, but the PlayStation 5, the biggest problem right now is the availability. You just can't really pick it up anymore, which really does suck. I love the PS5, I own it, I like it, but I don't really like about the availability, because I had to buy mine in the resale market and it just sucked so bad because you had to spend way more money on it. Unfortunately, with the PlayStation 5, it's such a beautiful, capable console, but it's just not that capable, mostly because of the lack of availability. And I feel like at some point, once Sony figures that out and everything, then PlayStation 5 is going to be a huge hit. But since it's kind of having some trouble getting in people's hands, that's going to be a huge problem in my opinion. But hopefully, Sony will eventually fix that. But that really pretty much covers it up for the most part. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. It send me so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly, everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.